Good evening and welcome to the May 23rd, 2018 NIC Board of Trustees meeting. Would you all please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Happy you can all join us tonight after graduation. I thought we'd have a smaller crowd, so welcome everyone. Trustee Howard could not be here tonight. He is traveling, but he sends his regards. And Trustee Murray, would you please read the mission statement?
Sure. I'll put the water back down. Mission statement: North Idaho College meets the diverse educational needs of students, employers, and the northern Idaho communities it serves through a commitment to student success, educational excellence, community engagement, and lifelong learning.
Thank you. We've all had an opportunity to review minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes board? Hearing none, we'll accept them as written. And no one has signed up for public comment, so that takes us on to Dr. Lita Burns. She's going to introduce Celebrating Success.
Chairwoman Wood and Board of Trustee members, Dr. McLennan and Mr. Lyons. It is my pleasure to introduce Celebrating Success tonight, and we are going to be talking about dual credit. There is much to celebrate as it relates to dual credit. This has been a growing program for a number of years now, and we can contribute that success to a number of factors. First of all, I would say it is our dedicated students who are interested in dual credit, interested in getting a jump on their four-year degrees and really being diligent about their studies, so we'll be hearing a little bit about that. We also want to celebrate the partnerships we have with our school districts and the help from the counselors of the school districts. It makes a huge difference in our ability to implement this program. Next, we'd also like to celebrate the amazing staff who operate our advanced opportunities. This is a dynamite team, and I say dynamite because there's only a few of them, but boy do they make an explosion when it comes to dual credit, and they just do an amazing job. And then finally, but not by any means the least, is the leadership that's provided by Cassie Silvas. So I'd like to invite Cassie Silvas and Marcy Hogart up here to present the dual credit Celebrating Success.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Dr. Burns, Madam Chair and Board of Trustee members, guests, President's Cabinet. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce the Power Team. A few years ago, we were able to assemble this team, and they've done an outstanding job building relationships, as Dr. Burns has mentioned, with the schools and providing excellent customer service. They are a great point of contact for schools and parents and students on all levels. Across the entire state of Idaho, we serve dual credit students. So I'd like to introduce Marcy, who's going to go through a few slides and introduce our special guest. Marcy Hogart is our coordinator for advanced opportunities, and that she focuses more on the transfer courses, the general ed courses that students take to get an associate's degree and to transfer on to the four-year programs. And Evan Moore, who is our CTE program coordinator, our career technical and education. He focuses on dual credit opportunities through our career technical pathways, as well as technical competency credit, which is mostly related right now to skill stack badging. So I'd like to introduce this Power Team and let them go forth with their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Cassie. A wonderful leader in her own right, for certain. Wouldn't be possible to do what we do and share with you today what we're about to without her. She's an amazing leader. So, yeah. Madam Chair, Board of Trustees, President McLennan, what a tremendous year we've had here at NIC, particularly within the Office of Advanced Opportunities. A big thank you to the Board of Trustees and the President's Cabinet for giving us this opportunity to share with you some amazing successes that we have and our awesome students and counselor here that are joining us today. Legislators this year noted that Idaho left 7,000 high-paying STEM-related jobs unfulfilled in 2017. That's $450 million in wages unclaimed. So every time we get a chance to get in front of a younger person, get a dual credit student on our campus, or Marcy or myself, or our team member in front of them at the high school, we take advantage of the opportunity to educate them about the opportunities that they could really afford by going through the program, persisting, and finishing with us. So let me introduce our team briefly. Natalie Kime, she's not here with us. Matter of fact, all our team members, we're representing the whole office at the moment. Natalie Kime, she's our senior administrative assistant. She's amazing. She's the first line of defense. She is who you talk to when you call, and she is a delight, absolute delight. We have a saying in our office, if you have a problem, bring it to us. If we can't fix it, then you don't have a problem. And for the most part, Natalie does a great job at doing that before it even reaches our desk. William Clifford is our transition coordinator. I've sort of passed the torch to William, as he is a cool guy, and he's a great face to have within the high school. It's important for us to have somebody that they can connect to. He has really got his finger on the pulse when it comes to what the students are doing and the lingo they're using, and really connecting and making an impact with them.
Kevin, is he related to Deanne?
He is.
I thought so.
Yes,
Okay.
Principal Clifford is his mommy.
Very nice.
So, which, by the way, in his phone, when she calls, it says mommy.
It says mom.
That's a good boy.
Yes, good boy. Deb Chambers, dual credit advisor. She's only part-time, unfortunately, because we'd love to have her full-time. She's amazing. We've stole her from retirement. She is, she's already so connected with the students when they come in. She's so fresh out of retirement that many of our dual credit students have already been advised by her prior.
She's wonderful, too.
Yeah, we absolutely love her. Thank you, Madam Chair. Gracie Allen, great success story. She's a Timberlake student, full-time, but comes to us part-time after school, kind of cutting her teeth within the world of administration and having a job. And she's learning, and she's a great help to us. We really appreciate her participation with the team. Real quick, before we get to our guest, I just want to share with you our student successes for this year. As you can see, we wanted to point out the growth from 2014-15. The total number here is in the blue with the GPA 2.85 at 993. That was the total that we had in fall 14, spring 15. Let's fast forward to fall 17, spring 18. That's over 2,900 students we had just this past year. So I told Marcy today, at this rate, we're going to have 10,000 students in 4 years. So if we could have some more money, Chris, that'd be great. Dual credit candidates for graduation every year, and I know some of you were able to attend. I know most certainly some of our President's Cabinet were there as well. We have a graduation breakfast to celebrate our students that graduated with their Associates of Applied Science before they graduated with their high school diploma. So what a great success. We're at 49 of the 2,900 of the year, right? Which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a true feat to do so. Yes, Trustee Banducci.
If I understood it right, too, you had two others that just barely didn't make it, if I heard that.
Oh yeah, yes. There was several that were just on the Mendoza line. Unfortunately, they just didn't quite make it. A couple more elective credits they would have had it. But they were being conservative, and we appreciate that.
Okay.
Next, we'll have Marcy talk.
All right. So a little history about dual credit. The Idaho legislature created dual credit 20 years ago, so we're at our 20-year anniversary. To give students the opportunity to begin taking dual credit or college classes while they're still in high school. Students taking dual credit classes gain an awareness of college processes, rigor of college classes, and the knowledge that they can be successful and do those classes. 5 years ago, the legislature again stepped up and created funding for the dual credit students. There was some students in the high schools had trouble maybe coming down here. They had some barriers, and so that money that was created for the students kind of broke those barriers, so we were able to, students can take the classes at the high school or internet and be able to afford those classes. Our current growth, I think, is a result of this funding. So students are able to take those classes and be part of our dual credit program. They can take classes at their high school, online, at the outreach centers, or on campus. We have students taking 1 to 15 credits. A couple of the students today did the work of, the 15 credits a semester and then in the summertime also. So a lot of work goes into this. So many students now can graduate from high school with college credits. And so we're going to be hearing from a counselor talking about that today. So the first success story that we want to talk about is Emelina Molly. She was a Coeur d'Alene High School 2008 18 graduate. She graduated from North Idaho, well, she's not graduated from high school yet. She's a North Idaho College graduate, and she's going to be attending BYU, and we'll want to hear all about her. So this is Emelina.
Please welcome Emelina.
Good evening, everybody. Like Marcy just said, my name is Emelina Miley. North Idaho College has been a family tradition for as long as I can remember. I have 2 aunts who actually graduated with their associate's degrees through this program. They were one of the first who started back in when the program started 20 years ago. So when it came time for me to enroll in high school as a freshman, long before I was even eligible to be a dual credit student, they both approached me. So did my grandparents, so did my family friends, and anybody that I knew who knew that this program existed to encourage me to enroll because of the incredible opportunities that it offered me for future advancement. I was also really super excited about the opportunities, but not so much about the autonomy that it offered me. There were a lot of decisions to make, and I was really overwhelmed with the possibilities. I didn't know what kind of classes I wanted to take, what kind of degree I should be pursuing, and what my schedule would look like. So when my mom found out about an event held 2 years ago, held just for students who were considering dual enrollment, she sent me packing with my grandma to find out everything that I could, and that was where I met Marcy for the first time. When she asked me to speak tonight, she actually gave me a few parameters and mentioned this night as a good example of something to speak about. And the fact that she remembers that night serves to me as a testament of the incredibly high quality of attention that I received while I was here, because we haven't spoken about it since it happened. She answered every one of my questions and my grandma's questions, and even provided some information that we hadn't even thought to ask. It was an incredible, incredible opportunity. On that night, she warmly invited me to come in and meet with her whenever I wanted to, but at least once a semester to ensure that I was on track to graduate, which was my goal, to graduate with my associates from here before I graduated from high school, which I did 2 weeks ago. When I came into that first meeting, I found that Marcy had done some research on the college, Brigham Young University, that I wanted to transfer to after I graduated. She had this pile of papers laid out for me so that she could assist me in the best way that she possibly could. There was never a time when I left Marcy's office feeling dejected or discouraged. Every time that I left, I felt in control and optimistic, which are feelings that any college student knows are rare indeed. It was incredible. As time went on, I came to find that I really liked the lifestyle here at NIC. I liked my new schedule and the opportunities that I had to meet with different kinds of people and to learn information that I wouldn't have had the chance to at high school. I really, really appreciated the opportunity to get a jump start on my education. Learning is one of my favorite pastimes. I love to learn new things and to grow, and NIC definitely provided that opportunity for me, especially through the funding that Marcy just mentioned. It was really awesome for me to have that opportunity to get that jump start, but also with an additional financial kind of boost for me. Thanks to the plans that Marcy and I made together, I was able to graduate with my associate's degree. I just mentioned that 2 weeks ago. I made the dean's list for all the semesters that I was here and graduated with a cumulative GPA of 4.0. I was accepted into Brigham Young University. As you can already tell, I got an academic scholarship, and it's just a huge, huge achievement, especially considering the fact that Marcy and I have been working toward that goal for the past 2 years. While I'm there, I plan to major in communications with an emphasis in public relations because I love doing things like this. I love standing up and speaking in public, reading and writing, and managing groups of people. That's kind of my expertise. I'm really excited about it. Because I received my associate's degree in full here, that degree will transfer fully over to BYU, so I will be starting at a point 2 years further than I would have previously. Thanks to the service that the dual credit office and the faculty at NIC here have given me during my time as a dually enrolled student, I'm excited at the fact that I have the opportunity to use that degree to serve others in my home, in my religious congregation, and in the community. Thank you.
Emily, yeah, that's all awesome. Before you sit down, we all like to make our comments and ask you questions.
Go ahead.
First of all, I'm so glad to hear about your major. I was going to suggest it. If you had no, you're an excellent public speaker.
Thank
so
you.
good for you. You have a very bright future. And it's very kind of you to come and share your success and the success of the program with the Board of Trustees. So thank you for taking the time to do that.
Thank you.
Board, did you want to question?
I would echo the same comments, just that congratulations on receiving the AA, but you are a very eloquent public speaker, so it's very
Well,
good.
thank you for affording this opportunity. Anytime that I have to brag about this dual credit office right here, I take, because it's thanks to them that I made it to this point, for sure.
We might take you up on that in the future. We'll have
boy.
we'll have to get you back here from Utah, but we might take you up on that. Very good. Thank you.
Well, that was planned.
Yes.
Make me look good.
I'm
No,
glad we
just
didn't
kidding.
follow her either.
I know. Okay, so next we had Joseph Benson. Unfortunately, he was Joseph was in the paper maybe a month ago. He's a STEM Charter Academy graduate this year. He got his 2-year degree. He got like a gazillion dollars in scholarships, according to the paper. But he called me this morning and he was like this. So he was very sick with a spring cold and he wasn't able to attend tonight. But I wanted to acknowledge him because he was another really high-quality student there.
Well, let's hope he's watching TV and we'll give him a round of applause.
Okay, there you go.
Get better, Joseph.
Next up, Annie Boudreau. She graduated last year from North Idaho College in her homeschool program, and I'm going to let her tell you all about herself. So, Annie.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi. I don't know how I'm going to follow that, but I will try.
No pressure.
Guess I'll start from the beginning. I was adopted from Ethiopia when I was 9 years old. Sorry. And my parents homeschooled me because I didn't speak English at the time. So by the time I reached 16 and I was a junior, my mom was like, hey, do you want to go to high school actually at Lakeland or dual enroll? And I chose to dual enroll because I believe since I was about 3, I've known I wanted to be a nurse. So I was all focused and set on that. So I dual enrolled, and my first meeting with Marcy, I was really nervous because I was like, oh, I don't know, this is going to be hard. This is college. Like, I don't know if I can do it. And we talked with Marcy, and when I left, it's kind of like she said, like, I was just refreshed, and I was like, okay, I can do this. And the way she set it up, it was easy, not an easier load, but I took 15 credits, but it was manageable. Like, she did easier classes to begin with. So that semester, whenever finals rolled around, I found out that I got on the dean's list. So I was like, oh, good, I could do this, let's do it. And then in the spring, I again met with Marcy, and we set out my schedule again, and I was like, okay, I can do it. And again, I made it on the dean's list. And I was like, oh my goodness, just one more year, I'm almost there. And then again, I did the same thing, and I graduated, like she said, in 2017, before I graduated with my high school diploma. And unlike her, there was one semester where I didn't make it on the dean's list. I was 0.1 away from it. So I graduated with 3.95 GPA, and I was really happy. And then the year after that, I was going to take a gap year, but I like school, but not that much. And I knew if I left, I wouldn't go back. So I was like, let's just do it. And I had A&P left. And microbiology, and I was like, oh gosh, I don't think this is going to be easy, but I did it, and I passed both of them first time around, and then I applied for the nursing program in the spring for fall, and I found out that I got in. So needless to say, all of that could not have been possible if it wasn't for the dual enrollment program. I would have been 2 years behind. I don't know if I would have had that same gumption, because I also got my CNA license while I was dual enrolled, so I've been working as a CNA to earn those points, and also just because I love my job. And so I've been doing that, and all of that would not have been possible if it wasn't for the dual enrollment program. So yeah.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
You should do public speaking
Oh,
too,
no.
even
No,
though you
that
want to
was
be a nurse. That's a great board. Any questions?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Trustee Banducci.
Your mom and dad are Dale and Yolanda, right?
Yes. Yeah.
There's quite a story with that family. I'm sure they're extremely proud of you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Making us look good, aren't you?
Right, yeah, that's easy.
Okay, next. Frank Vieira is Lakeland High School counselor and champion of dual credit, we say, because he's always really positive and wants to share a little bit about his school and what they do at Lakeland High School.
And what was your first name again, sir?
Frank.
Frank. Well, 2 board members, that's our alma mater, so you already are glowing in our eyes.
All right. Well, thank you for having me here tonight. It's quite an honor. I want to start out with, I'm a product of a community college myself. Had the opportunity while growing up in southern Idaho to take a couple college classes at my high school through the College of Southern Idaho, where as a young high school student, I got to meet Graydon Stanley, who was visiting high schools and encouraging kids to pursue higher education. So it was quite a delight to see Graydon make it up here to the prettier part of the state, North Idaho. My daughter graduated from NIC. I have 2 daughters. Both of them did dual enrollment. My wife as well graduated from NIC through the nursing program. And I'm a big proponent of community colleges, and it is really, I think, the backbone of America, and it provides so many opportunities, unlike other countries around the world, and I can't say enough for community colleges. So thank you. And now I'm going to talk about the dual credit program. I was there at the inception. I remember Wayne Meyer, a local representative who sponsored dual credit with the legislature, coming to our high school library to talk to administrators and counselors and other individuals about this upcoming opportunity that was going to be coming to Idaho. And at first, we were like, this is a big paradigm shift. Any high school kid, 16 or older, can just jump in and do college classes. How is this going to work out? What we first noticed was that at the beginning of the program, students were driving from Rathdrum, paying for parking, going to college classes, maybe sometimes coming back and taking high school classes. And what we found quickly was that these students, often some of our top students, were leaving sports, leaving clubs, activities, extracurricular activities, just to squeeze in a couple extra college classes. And we also were concerned about high school kids having to travel sometimes every day to get to college classes. And we began asking, how can we bring the college to the campus, to our campus? And we are, and so what we started to do was, with the help of the state and the encouragement of North Idaho College, getting some college instructors to our campus, and then hiring some of our own instructors to teach college classes. So today we have over 15 classes that we teach at Lakeland High School. Most of our students take college classes through our program there, although we have some that come to the campus here and take classes. But they're a small minority compared to the students that are taking advantage of dual credit. We also have students doing internet classes, and I'm seeing more and more success as we move forward with our technology, with students being comfortable taking online courses and being just more successful in passing these online courses. But for most of our kids, they prefer the face-to-face, teacher in the flesh, and being able to interact in that manner. And we're also delighted to see that students can still stay and do sports, take high school classes mixed with college classes. What we found, just looking at 4 years ago, when we just did a snapshot of spring 2014, we had 74 students taking NIC classes. And 4 years forward, we now have 184 students taking college classes. 46% of our 11th and 12th graders are taking dual credit classes now. Something else that we also found to be successful was to use some grant money that we had won through the Albertsons Foundation, and to use it to buy textbooks for students. And the textbooks we would rent back to them or allow them to use for free. So they range anywhere from $0 to $30, although there is now a move towards moving to online textbooks, which the students, of course, have to pay for the full price for that. But for a lot of our students, this was an opportunity to take a college class. The state is helping pay for this, the tuition. We have grant money to help them rent textbooks cheaply, and it just has blossomed with the number of kids that are taking dual credit with us right now. Something else I had thought about was the carbon footprint that we're saving. I did a little calculation, and if 184 of our students were doing all their classes here, that would have been something like 230,000 miles driven if each kid just kind of did it on their own. Plus, the high school has free parking, so there's some money saved there. And we also really like the idea of high school kids being with other high school kids, but also taking high-level classes within their high school. It definitely has raised the bar within our system, and kids look forward to taking the courses. What we are now seeing is a big move for kids wanting to get as many college classes as possible. Our graduating class, 19% of our seniors will have a semester of college completed. So that's a great head start. 17% will have a year of college completed. My oldest daughter did that. She did a year of college and went off for 3 more years to get her bachelor's, so it saved mom and dad a little bit of money. We're excited about that. Our other daughter did the semester version. She just wanted to do more high school, but also liked to take a couple college classes. Each individual has to be advised appropriately. And with our team of counselors that are working with our students and with the support that we get from the dual credit office at North Idaho College, it is truly a success story. I cannot say enough for the dual credit program that you guys have here at North Idaho College, led by these 2 fine individuals here to my side. They are very responsive anytime we call with a question, very patient with us if we need clarification on things. We're seeing more advising that is needing to be done as kids pinpoint future universities or colleges that they want to go to. And so our role is changing as school counselors. Our goal, again, is to see every kid be successful. And this program really does wonders, I think, for the state of Idaho and for our local community. We're truly blessed by having North Idaho College here in Kootenai County. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. We think so, too. Thank you for saying that. You know, it takes strong advocates, not only with our staff, which we think are fantastic, but in the high schools. And I know the counselors have their hands full. But it's really so great that you take the time to be that advocate for students about college as well, aside from all the other issues that are floating around out there. So thank you for that. What a huge number, what a huge increase. And I think there's a trustee here who probably knows your work. Is that true?
Indeed.
Trustee Murray.
Yes.
I do know Frank's work, and all I would say is that in sports, there's a lot of great players, but Frank would be one of the all-stars.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Too kind.
Trustee Dunlap.
Frank, thank you very much for all you do for your students and to help contribute to the success, their success with North Idaho College, in spite of your earlier encounter with CSI and Graydon Stanley.
Miracles do happen.
Well, enjoy Lakeland. It's a fine place.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Yes, Trustee Vandercheep.
Go ahead. Yes, please.
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything there. I only went to Lakeland through 8th grade, so I don't know if I qualify.
Oh, I don't know. That's 8 years.
I'm a Viking. What can I say?
No, you didn't.
Now, Evan, one of the things that I did here. What's that?
I said, no, you don't count that.
Back when we were A1 and you guys were A2, you know, A3, little school. I heard a couple stories, and I'm going to get this slightly off, so please help me, because we're talking about transportation. Frank was pointing out of course, North Idaho never has a winter of any substance and snow. But if I remember, one of the young people, and I sat at a table with a couple of kids that live out of our district, actually, but one of them, I don't know if it was Priest River or Bonners or Sandpoint, remember, they said that she was driving at least once a week and sometimes twice a week. And I started thinking about the commitment that took. Mm-hmm. And there were others, some of the more outlying smaller schools, because I just guess we don't probably have enough instructors in those schools. Where, like at a Lakeland, we have quite a staff, or Lake City or Coeur d'Alene or Post Falls, so some of them had to come to the campus for classes. I mean, you remember the story or who it was or where they were coming from, but it just seems like... What's that?
It was St. Mary's.
Was it St. Mary's? Thank you. I knew it was one of the outlying schools. And I'm thinking, in the winter conditions, the commitment to come at least once a week on those roads.
Yeah.
These kids are impressive all the way around, not just academically, but just their discipline and their commitment, and fortitude to do it.
Yeah,
we agree.
absolutely.
Very impressive.
We agree. We're trying our best to expand our dual credit offering within the high schools, particularly within our rural areas, so students don't have to take the risk in the winter to come and drive and spend that time. But until then, they do. They are committed. They're some of the most self-sufficient. We're so proud of them.
Yeah.
I look at myself at their age, and there was no comparison at all. So,
Well, I'm glad to hear the
Making up for
progress,
it
because
now.
what Frank was talking about was true. When I was a junior and senior, and I was playing sports and looking for athletic scholarships, I was a Division I athlete, there was no way I could do the stuff, because it was at the very end of the day, and we had to come to NIC to do it. And so you either did the calculus or whatever you were trying to take, or you played your sports. And so it was a tough choice to have to make, so it's nice to see we can accommodate the kids to do both.
definitely don't want to force them into that decision, for sure.
Thank you.
We would love to thank everybody, but particularly the Board of Trustees. Thank you so much for your support, your ongoing support. We're not here at every meeting, but every time our name does come up, we know it's in a positive manner from you. And everyone's connected to somebody that's been touched by dual credit. We know that. The college administration, there is not an office within Lee Caldo Hall that does not touch dual credit in some way, shape, or form. Without them, we would be unsupported, and I don't think we could do it. So admissions and even the business office to go as far, and registrar's office, everyone has a big hand in it in our support. So, and it's a lot of work. These kids are anxious, and with 2,900 students, it's quite the workload. Our divisions, CTE, English, or math, of course, our social sciences, behavioral sciences, it's very important. Student support services, couldn't do it without you, and our advising as well. So, and of course, student and parents.
Oh, student and parents and our team in the office. We really need that support. Everybody's really willing to jump in and do what it takes to make sure that we have students like this graduating and getting out of NIC, and always being an NIC alumni.
Yes, be proud,
Be proud.
speak it loud. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great presentation. Thank you. And Board, I would suggest that when people get things right, it needs to be celebrated. And they mentioned that we're in our 20th year that the legislator passed this. So I'd like us to kind of think about, Laura, think about this fall when we do our legislative gathering. We need to celebrate their work. They got it right. And maybe a shortened version of this celebrating success, that we could tell them, show them how it's worked. Just a thought. All right. That takes us on to our constituent reports. ASNIC, Caleb.
Good evening, Chair Wood, Board of Trustees, President's Cabinet, and guests. Unlike the first example for dual credit success, I am excited to announce that this is my last time public speaking. So it's been pretty good. So as you may know, ASNIC had their elections, and that's all done and completed with. I'll let Peter report on those at the next Board of Trustees, since it is his team. I wanted to thank everyone here for their support in my time in ASNIC, both as Vice President and as President. 2 years has really gone by pretty fast. It was a very successful year, this year especially, being the President. We completed a variety of projects, such as past students' access into the Student Wellness Rec Center, instructor evaluations project, which is still being worked on, so thank you to everybody who's helping with that as well. We also helped with the Cardinal Bookstore remodel and helping establish the Sexual Assault Program Coordinator for North Idaho College, which is great to have. I have been meeting with the State Board of Education to also better represent North Idaho College and other colleges and universities in the state of Idaho, which was excellent to get that started. We also created carpooling for North Idaho College to reduce on emissions and also to save the environment in general, and parking problem on campus too, as well. We also got 40 calculators for the College Skill Center, so tutors and tutees can have that calculator available when they can't afford it, since they are about $260 each. We also help with the implementation of Canvas, which is replacing Blackboard on NEC's campus, which I'm excited about also. And overall, we were just very busy. We created 18 resolutions. We also had our usual ASNC meetings, committee work. A lot of them had jobs and just try to keep up social lives as well, so it was pretty exciting. I was really proud of my team this year. Heather Erickson, the ASNC advisor, used the word consistent to describe us, in which she is very correct. I made sure to work hard every day, as did my team. I held myself and my team accountable for everything that we did, and I make sure that we kept up with our promises to North Idaho College and anybody who asked for our help as much as we could. Except financially, sorry everybody who asked for money. We didn't have the most of that this year. But I made sure to utilize my talents along with my team, and the biggest takeaway I think for me was I was able to utilize what I knew in order to help others realize what they could know and achieve within their job. And that was the best part for me, was watching my team grow together throughout the year and as individuals. I was very proud of their efforts and for what they did to make NIC better. And overall, it was great being in charge of them. It sounds weird because I'm 20 and most of them were my age, but it kind of felt like being their parent in a way, and just watching them grow. It was very well worth it, and I'm just proud of what they achieved. There is one person here who's going to be here for next year, and Peter, where is Peter? There he is. This is Peter Soderberg. He was our Senator pro tempore this year, and he will be the incoming ASNC president. And that's all I have.
Well, welcome, Peter. We'll talk to you next meeting. Caleb, you should be very proud of 2 years of hard work. The things that you named off, you made sound so effortless, but you worked your tail off, and we know it, and you are a consistent voice for students and that come to the meeting and share what's happening on campus, what your hopes, dreams, and desires are from the student body, and that's so important for this board. Tell us a little bit about what happens next. Where's Caleb going?
I have one more semester here. After that, there's a lot of options out there, and I like to evaluate all of them, which colleges and universities. It's somewhat impossible sometimes. I have been looking at Lewis Clark State College here.
Great college.
Helping out with my family, and they also have the local campus here. And I found out they offer free tuition to a certain number of students, which is pretty good incentive for me,
yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. But I've been looking at schools in Washington and Oregon as well, and friends have been trying me to come to California, like get there, but we'll see.
Could I throw my 2 cents in? I went to LCSC and I love it, so I choose that for you.
There we go, perfect. Okay, it's decided.
And it's that's what we're all trying to do here. You don't have to leave town to get an education, so
yeah.
I wish you so much success. Board, do you have comments? I kind of hogging the show here with him, but what a great student. Questions or comments?
Thank you for your service. Enjoyed your talk at graduation. So nice job there.
Yes.
And sometimes it's harder to be in charge of your friends than other people.
That was one of my, I guess, fears or concerns. When we went to a conference, all of the presidents for the student government met, and we discussed what is our fears, what it was called, and mine was actually trying to be the boss, but also trying to be the friend. It's a very fine line that takes a while to get used to.
Great.
Growth opportunity.
Yes, it was.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Have a great summer.
Thank you, you too.
Staff Assembly, Susie Dean.
Good evening. I have to say, first of all, you may be done with public speaking, but I have a feeling you're not done being a leader. Because it sounds like, just from what I've heard in your reports, I think you've done an amazing job, and you and the students that have been on your team are shining examples of what NIC can put out there, so congratulations. So Staff Assembly, we finished up our year with a presentation by President McLennan. He came back twice in 1 year, so we didn't scare him off. Gave us an update on the budget, and also kind of discussed the next steps in the planning that's been going on. And then he also talked about what's coming up in the accreditation cycle coming up in the new year. Then we had Chris Martin and Andrea Wempner went over the VIBA offering. We had previously already sent information out to the employees, but this gave them a good chance to ask questions that they might have been pondering in their head but not asking yet. Then we introduced our new officers and celebrated all the staff members that were nominated for Staff Excellence Awards. So we had 24 nominees for those awards. So we celebrate them, but we also celebrate those who nominated them, because I think it speaks a lot to our employee population that coworkers would recognize coworkers and take the time to fill out the nomination form. So brief, but that concludes my final report as Staff Assembly Chair. Next year, Kathy Sparks takes over, and you've already met her. She's covered for me a couple of times. I would just say thank you for allowing me to represent our staff and for laughing at my jokes. It has been an eye-opening experience.
Susie, thank you for being part of the process. It is important to have that input from all over campus. So thank you for stepping up and taking that role. Board, any comments, questions? Have a great summer, too. Jeff Carr.
Good evening. Faculty Assembly met this month, and we discussed a faculty titles proposal, which I believe has been approved. Essentially outlined different faculty titles like associate, assistant professor, and a full professor, and how to actually obtain those titles. It's phase one, phase two, so we can look at special appointments and that all that next year, but we got a good plan in place, and looking forward to it. I'd like to congratulate the winners of the Faculty Achievement Awards at this year's commencement. Jonathan Frey, Tammy Payton, and Kristen Peterson were all awarded for their teaching services, and I'd like to congratulate them for their efforts. We also elected our senators for next year. I'm pleased to report that Lisa Kellerman, Josh Meisner, Gerard Mathis, and Angela Earnhardt will all be serving as senators. James Love and myself will be serving as alternates. This will be my last time serving in this capacity as Faculty Assembly Chair. You will have the great and wonderful Joe Jacoby to entertain you next year and to inform you of all the goings-on of what's going on with faculty.
That's great. Now, how is Joe going to fill your shoes? Let's be honest here.
Oh. Well, he's in theater, so he's already got that step up, because he
does.
can turn it into a performance, and I'm just a lowly journalism guy. I can just tell you the facts.
Yes, yes. Well, it's been a pleasure to work with you and to get to know you, and thank you for all the great reporting. And we will look forward to seeing Joe in your place.
Thank you very much.
Board, any comments?
Enjoy the good biking weather.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. And the Senate, Jessica Adams.
Chair Wood, trustees, president, colleagues, and guests. Before I get to my report, I would like to comment that Caleb is not escaping too quickly. He has already volunteered to help at our new student orientations this summer at Inside NIC, and he is a work study student in advising, and he somehow let that slip. But he is still hard at work, even though he doesn't have a permanent ASNIC position. So.
Awesome.
Yeah, so moving on to my report, College Senate has actually met twice, which I realized this morning, since you guys last met. We had an April meeting after your guys' April meeting with 2 items of business. Chris had introduced a affiliation with outside entities policy. After much discussion, we realized that it needed a little bit more input and clarification from PC, so we took and withdrew that policy to be reviewed further by PC before it came back to College Senate. We also reviewed the compensation policy, was back at our table, and so we did approve that for first reading. In our May meeting, as Lisa may have told you, that is probably the most exciting meeting for any College Senate chair, as we start off the meeting with the new executive committee appointments and elections. So I was elected as the chair for the committee, so you guys get to see me once a month next year. For vice chair, it's Ben Tashetta. He's on faculty. Our parliamentarian is Michelle Lipper. Our corresponding secretary is Jameson Lee. Lisa will still stay on the executive committee as our past chair. And then we do have a Senate Executive Committee appointment for a recording secretary, and Matt Burns was appointed to that position. The rest of the meeting, Lisa got to relax, kick her feet up, and I took over the meeting. So President McLennan introduced a draft of a emeritus status document based on best practices amongst other colleges. After discussion at the meeting, we ended up creating an ad hoc committee to take that document and separate it into a policy and procedure. So we'll be looking at that next fall because we don't meet during the summer. And then our second item of business was the second reading of the compensation policy, which was passed for a second reading. So it is on the president's desk and it will be coming to you guys soon. Any questions?
Great. Well, we look forward that you're going to stay with us another year. That's awesome. Board, any questions? All right. Well, you have a great summer. Thank you. And next is the president's report. Dr. McLennan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members, guests. I want to add my appreciation and acknowledgement of the great work the constituent leaders have done this year, the time and the seriousness with which they take their role and participating in institutional governance, the time they put into coming to these meetings. We meet once a month prior to this meeting, and I joke with them sometimes that I'm always wondering what they're thinking when they're sitting across the table. But they've done a terrific job. We have had some great conversations, and Caleb, I wish you well as you move on. You did a great job. It's just so much, it's gratifying for me, and I think all of us, to see the growth that happens throughout the year, not just for the students, but everybody who's involved in this process, getting the knowledge of what it takes to actually work through these decisions that we make as an institution. So my appreciation, and I welcome the new constituent leaders, and I'm looking very much forward to working with them throughout the next year. We brought the college into a safe landing for the academic year, culminated with commencement. So many wonderful activities at the end of the year. I know you know about many of them, but one of the things that I've observed over the last 2 years here at NIC is, we really do celebrate success in a meaningful way. A lot of certainly the formal things from, the pinning ceremonies with nursing, with the radiography program, the ABE program, the dual enrollment breakfast, all the way to the science faculty, science department end of the year picnic. And you may not know about that event, but it's just another example. It is a science department picnic, and it's a lot of good food, hamburgers, hot dogs, and all that. But it's also a faculty-led award ceremony for the students in their programs. And so the students are part of that event as well, and it's really down to the personal level of celebrating students' success for many of our outstanding students. And then a lot more that, I really don't have time to talk about, but as that culminates in commencement, commencement was, again, just a wonderful activity. Some great speakers once again. It was fun also being able to celebrate the contributions of Senator Sean Keogh. I know that was very meaningful to her. She's very grateful on behalf, on part of NIC for recognizing her. And Senator Keogh really only did that at our request, at my request, to be able to hold her up as a model of lifelong learning and commitment to education. And given her role in supporting education, she felt that was something that she should do, and we're grateful for that. I want to thank board members and all the people who participated and helped put on the celebration of the 20-year anniversary of the 9-Point Agreement, where we took a reflective look back on the work of that effort and all the people who were involved in that. And really, it was a recommitment to continuation and future collaboration and even strengthening that work. And I think that event accomplished that. And so thank you for that. We are getting towards the end. We actually probably are at the end of our the aspect component of our Cultivate NIC process that involves community engagement. We held The most recent and last conversation with School District 271, it was a focus group just with public educators to give us feedback about, from their perspective, again, answering those two questions. Are we relevant from their perspective, and what would make us more relevant, again, from their perspective? Had a wonderful conversation. And just to kind of summarize all of these community engagements that we've had, these conversations, the feedback that we've received has been insightful, meaningful, well thought out. We had a few folks, one of the last ones, who said, well, you don't just have me tonight, you have my children, their friends, our relatives. I had 15 people talk to me about what I should be telling NIC when I come to have this conversation with you. And so that's the level of importance our community members who came to have these conversations with us have put in the process. And we've learned a lot from that. And you will see it come through the planning process as we finalize that work. While I'm on the topic of Cultivate NIC, tonight we're going to be presenting to you a draft of the, as you know, of the early work on the facility master plan. You are seeing this document for the first time this evening. It was just in time for tonight that we actually were able to get it to this final stage of production. But I want to just reiterate, as we've done with other workshops or study sessions, this isn't the last conversation obviously about facility master planning. You should have received an email from Shannon earlier today with some dates in June for a focused study session on the work of NIC Cultivate, which will include a deep dive into the facility master plan as well. So tonight we're going to be presenting some of the bigger moving pieces with this for board information and some discussion, but we will have several other touch points along the way before this process becomes finalized. And then lastly, I'll just end with what a great weekend this was. It started on Friday with over 100 of our community friends who included foundation board members and friends of North Idaho College at the Hayden Lake Country Club for the annual Bon Appetit event. And I don't have a number of how much money was raised, but it was substantial. And it's just a wonderful event, and it's just a great example of how much this community wants to support NIC. In my comments to the group, I just asked how many of you have graduated or taken classes at North Idaho College, and I think about 75% of the room raised their hands. And of course, these are people from very young to not very young. And so we have a lot of friends there, and that was a great way to start the weekend. It culminated through the weekend with our men and women's golf tournament finals, NWAC finals, and our women's softball final tournament. You may have already probably read about that, but what a culmination with the men winning the NWAC championship in golf on Monday in a tiebreaker, and the drama around that is worth noting if you didn't read the article, how far they had to come back to do that. And then just probably one of the most exciting women's softball teams I've seen in a long time. They are the epitome and definition of what a team looks like when it's working as a team. And it was a lot of fun to be there and see the parents and the families celebrate their success. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Great report. Board questions for the president? All right. Thank you. That takes us to our KTEC report. Trustee Banducci.
Well, once again, the report from KTEC is nothing but positive. They're doing a great job out there. They were down at the state competition, at the skills competition, and they took second and third in the diesel category, first and second in the construction category, and very exciting, our brand new collision repair program that Cal has helped spearhead, they took first and third. So the two first place participants, in collision repair and construction, will get to go on and compete at the national level, at nationals. So that's very exciting.
Can I ask you, who were they competing with? Where is this held?
Down in Boise, and basically competing against everybody else of their age group that comes from any sort of technical training school or
Throughout the state.
throughout the state.
Wow, that's impressive.
Because then the next category up would be our kids from the college, competing against the other colleges and other technical training schools and that sort of thing. So this is at the high school level. But they did outstanding. And some of you may have seen, there was a little bit on them in the paper, and then there was, the Nick Now had a picture of them. So if you see the Nick Now, they got a little press there. And so anyway, they're doing great. One of the things that I was told, and this will sound a little funny, but apparently, they asked the kids and they tally this up, but they said that the graduates there, that they were getting 2.2 job offers per student. That's the average. So that's in high demand. The graduates out there are right now in the different disciplines that they're graduating at that level already with the skill sets that they've acquired. So every kid's seeing at least, on average 2 to 3 job offers, which was the goal. So that's a tremendous success. Now, I'm sure some will go into employment, and certainly a number will walk across the parking lot as we envisioned and continue on with their education.
Maybe do both.
Well, truthfully, most of them are. A lot of them end up working and continuing their education, and then sometimes their employers will help to pay for that education. And then part of that is the employers become their long-term employment, So they're not apprentices per se, but they're folding them in, so they're training and teaching them while they're going.
Yeah.
Using the skills that they have already. They're already productive, The director out there, Colby Matilla, we voted to renew his contract. That young man is doing a fantastic job. He's had I think I can say this for the board, has just had tremendous growth in the last year, and I would suggest to you the board is just extremely proud of him. And so, yeah, he's doing a great job out there, and so he will continue to lead them next year.
Great.
So very exciting. And everybody wants to do something on the 27th of June. I've got a KTEC meeting. Now you're talking about a workshop. We got executive committee. We got a board meeting. When am I supposed to celebrate my birthday? Who's bringing the beer and cake?
Well.
55 years old.
What? Double nickel?
Double nickel on
Okay.
the 27th.
Well, we'll be sure to wish you happy birthday on the 27th.
Man.
You'll have to pick us over all those other commitments you've made. I was going to ask you, Trustee Banducci, graduation's coming up. Do you have an idea, a number of how many will graduate?
I did not hear that number at the meeting.
You can tell us next month.
Yeah, I'll
since
be happy
You'll be
to.
with us on your birthday. Unless you get a better offer, which you might.
Well, depending, because we go from about noon to 1-ish, so depending on when the workshop starts, I may be ferrying back and forth.
Yeah. Okay, are there any questions for Trustee Banducci? Thank you, Todd, for that
You bet.
report.
They're just doing great out there.
No, and thank you for going to those meetings and being our representative. It's important that we have that continuity. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. And they thank us for the partnership. It's ideal right now.
All right, under old business, tab 1, our second reading of our college calendar academic years. Graydon Stanley.
Thank you very much, Chair Wood, trustees, President McLennan, colleagues, and friends. Thank you for the opportunity to present this second reading about the college calendar. Before I do that, I'd love to take the liberty of noting another guest in our audience tonight. We had 3 student body presidents in here at one time. Peter's already taken off, but if you didn't notice that familiar face, in Sean Collins has joined us after a very successful year at the University of Idaho, preparing himself to come back and work at North Idaho College as soon as he gets his degree. So Sean, nice to have you back as well. I would also like to note, since Frank Vieira is no longer here to defend himself, and contrary to what Trustee Dunlap said, that Frank was a very troubled student at College of Southern Idaho, and I really saved
Watch
him.
out,
And
watch
so
out.
His success.
Watch out for FERPA information here.
I won't give you anything more specific, but trust me, I had to save Frank many times.
I'm just trying to see how much younger than is he than you. Were you a
He
child or what?
probably made you think that he was a student when I was working there. And in fact, as I recall, we were colleagues together. We're a similar age. Let me take you to the college calendar, perhaps one of the most controversial topics on your agenda tonight. So I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. It is second reading. As you know, we planned quite a ways out. This is for 2029 through 2031. There aren't any notable changes in the calendar. This goes to a calendar committee that consists of various stakeholders across campus who put this together, run it through the Senate, and then present it to you for inclusion about 10 years, longer than 10 years down the road. So I'm asking for your approval of this calendar. It is dates that are typical of every year. We can make adjustments as we move closer to those years in the future.
Chairman Wood, if I might.
Yes.
When I mentioned to the three superintendents at the meeting what we were doing in the year timeframes, because I asked about the coordination of calendars, they all just kind of chortled, 20 what?
That's because we're the leader of the region.
Well, and I believe that Graydon has agreed to be here in 2029 to make
I was
sure.
going to say, yeah, I object just on that basis.
You're looking for a motion for the
Yes.
calendar.
Yes, please,
Trustees, do I
Chairwoman.
have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Trustee Murray, was that? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Discussion, opposed? I did that backwards. Motion approved.
Thank you very much.
Whoa, you got off easy. That's tithing.
That takes us to tab 2, our second reading FY19 general fund budget. This is a little heavier topic. Welcome, Chris Martin.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Trustee Banducci.
I make a motion to approve the budget as presented with two exceptions. I would like to have the in-district tuition canceled out or not assessed, so no in-district tuition, and I would like to see the salary study also not seen through. So I'd like to delete the salary study, and I'd like to delete the in-district tuition increase. And Mr. Martin has assured me that approximate $45,000-ish deficit that creates is easily manageable and can be adjusted inside the budget.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? I'm willing to second it for discussion. I'll make the second for discussion.
Okay? Thank you.
All right, so would you like to expand on, in discussion, as to your reason for your motion?
Yes, ma'am. First off, I thought budget as presented, I had the privilege of spending about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes with Chris and Sarah, and I'm very comfortable with the budget. We went through it pretty much line by line, and there were some adjustments made and corrections and some work the first time, a little bit more sense, but I've been very engaged in the budget, so and Rick joined us, a little late, but he was there. Messing with him. But it was a good visit, and again, I felt comfortable with the budget. We've had the first reading, I've read it again. Chris and I have had some discussions. So in whole, I feel very comfortable with the budget. Again, there are two items that I would take exception to. One is the small amount of $70,000 to $75,000 of income that will be generated, revenue generated by the in-district tuition increase. I think we could forego that. With the money we're putting in our capital expense, our capital fund, with the way we're covering the $500,000 of the other monies that we have, with the reserve that we have, I think we're in the peanuts area on that. And I'd like to, as nothing else, it's a symbolic gesture that we're not going to raise in-district tuition. I'd like to increase the differential slightly between the in-district and the out-of-district. And if we do not do the salary study, that saves us, I believe, about $27,500 approximately is the estimate. So that puts us back down around $45,000, $50,000 that we need to find. Chris, help me if I need to refine those numbers. I think I'm ballparking it a little bit. You and I have talked about it. Again, I think we're really in the noise level to a budget of the magnitude that we have, and to that level, it's fraction, again. So, and on the salary, I guess a brief justification of that. I think we're very competitive. I think we've had a number of different inputs over the last number of years. I think if we looked at that in a couple more years, maybe that might be the right time. I think we could go as long as at least maybe a 5-year time before we do it. But we've seen where we stand against CSI and CWI and even College of Eastern Idaho now, and then we've seen what we look in the Western group and others, and we're competitive, and we're on the high end of those. We pay more than the other 3 community colleges, so I think we're comfortable with that, based on our standard of living here, the cost of living, what we've got with the CPI and everything going on, and what we've done with the different levels of step and things like that. So I think we're commensurate with what's appropriate in the current economic conditions. And I speak as a financial professional that looks at this every day and has a bit of a handle on some of that. I work with a lot of companies. So I'm comfortable with where we're at there. So I don't think we need to go spend the extra money to study. I think we've beat that a lot up. And so we could let it go for a little bit, I think. So that's my thinking on that.
Okay. Board, any discussion? Trustee Dunlap.
I would like to hear President McLennan's perspective on that, those proposed
Both
changes.
proposals? All right, that would be great. Can
Sure.
you share with us?
Well, thank you for that opportunity. There's a lot of different ways to think about tuition and tuition increases. The College of Southern Idaho this year, their board approved about a 10% tuition increase, which is, it equates to, I think, $10 credit hour. They believe that's going to be manageable. The proof will be in enrollment, if that has an impact on enrollment or not. But I think by any measure, that's a significant increase and could be a shock to the system for students. So one approach in tuition is, rather than stepping hard on the gas pedal, that if you know you're going to have inflationary growth over time, that you tap on the gas pedal and put this out in smaller, what seem to be more insignificant, and in any one given year, they do appear to be insignificant bites, but you capture that growth over a gradual period of time rather than having to go through a shock or something that could have a dramatic impact on tuition. So it's probably the most modest tuition increase I've dealt with along the role of in this budget setting process. I would ask that you preserve it for that reason, that we take that incremental opportunity now rather than having to take a more painful step in the future. Students have supported, to the extent that we get student input on this, have supported this strategy, and so there's that. Yeah, on the salary study side, if we wanted to, I didn't know this until I spoke with our HR folks, but if we wanted to do a truly comprehensive, get down into the really detailed salary study, it would cost substantially more than the $27,000 that we're earmarking for this year. What I've asked, so in the possibility that this budget is approved with that line in it at the $27,000, we do get other employment or salary data that is useful through the Mountain State Survey, through the University Business yes.
Mountain States, that's what I was trying to say.
But there's two sources, one's national, one's more regional. We then compare ourselves to other like institutions. We're going to go back and reset those institutions that we've historically compared ourselves to in those two surveys, and then look at. So my thought is that we're going to get probably about 80% of the information, or some high percentage of information, out of those sources of information. But there's going to be some areas where we just don't have good comparative numbers, and to use that salary study funding to go after the differential and create some knowledge about where our salaries are. An example of that is we have at the dean and department chair level, the dean level, department chair level, program coordinator level, anything to do with faculty administration and management, the role of faculty in those positions is very uneven across institutions. And what those responsibilities are, whether they're compensated through load reduction or compensated towards monetary increase, their faculty status versus administrative status. What role does a dean pick up that a faculty department chair is not picking up on the administrative side? So for us to use any of those regional or national data sources on those positions, we can look really good or really bad depending on how you're making those comparisons. And so for me, in order to do this, if we're going to do it at all, it's got to be credible work. And we've got to, so we're going to have to drill into some of those areas where we just don't have good comparisons and get better information. So will the $27,000 be adequate to do that? That's the shot we're going to take at that. Again, getting the majority of our information from these other sources and then kind of culling down that list. Do we need to do it? I guess the answer that I would give is I don't know. I don't know until we go through this exercise. Yes, we've been giving step increases and we've been making some adjustments over time to the scale. Off and on it's been uneven. But to take a true look and picture of where we stand in relation to our peers in salaries, I don't know that I can answer whether we need to do it or not because I don't have the information to tell me one way or the other now where we are in that realm.
Well, I have a suggestion, Trod, on 1 out of 2. The salary study, I think, that part of that comes out of our compensation policy. And there was some request for that in that policy. So what I would propose, just for discussion, that maybe we could table the salary study at this time, and then through that discussion, if we determine it's necessary, we could always reallocate it in the budget. So that's one way. The tuition, the reason it's so easy for us this year to maybe say, yeah, we could let it go, is because it is small. But if we keep it small every year, it's manageable. I am a little concerned about kicking the can down the road because we could do it, but then we got to go pick up that can in 3 years. And that is painful. A 10% increase, even a 5% increase really hurts. And so if you do those little pieces for inflation, I do think students have a responsibility in paying for their education. They do. Just like our taxpayers do, just like our parents that are involved. But students also have that. And so $1.50 is pretty low to ask them to contribute to their education. Those are just my thoughts. Board, any thoughts on the motion that's on the table?
I've been thinking a lot here.
Yeah.
Trustee Banducci, I appreciate your 2 concerns. Hadn't really given much thought after having the budget meeting, and I realize you brought up the raise in tuition last month, but I hadn't thought about the salary study, and I quite honestly, I feel we could do without one of the 2. And I get what you're saying, tapping on the brakes and small increase a lot better. I would not have a problem with that small increase. I do think that because we've sent, as a board, we've sent that compensation policy back a number of times, and it does have verbiage in there about the salary study. I say until we get that policy back and approved, that we table the salary study. May not do the end all, but I do think the 2 issues that you brought forth today are at least good for discussion, and at least you had foresight to think about those things. I only thought about the tuition one, so thank you. That's my thoughts.
Trustee Dunlap, do you have anything further?
Yeah. In terms of the tuition increase, I mean, that represents a 1%. As opposed to CSI doing a 10%. And so that probably represents maybe a $40 increase over the course of an entire year for a student. And that is extremely modest. And so I'm supportive of keeping that in place, just so that we don't have to go to a 10% or some other amount over a period of years.
Okay. Well, there appears to be some consensus in our discussion, but we would need to modify your motion and see where we're at with it.
I will modify my motion. Actually, what I would like to do is may I withdraw my motion and make a new motion? Mark, we good with that? Or would you rather me modify it?
Got a motion to withdraw the motion?
Well, that's why I'm asking, which way do you want me to go here?
Yeah,
What's more appropriate, sir?
strictly on Robert's Rules of Orders, Robert's Rules, we don't follow them strictly, they're a guideline, so if you withdraw your motion and the person who, the chair who seconded the motion will agree to that, then we can treat this as a withdrawn motion.
All right,
Yeah, I move to withdraw my motion.
and I second.
I move to make a new motion. And with one commentary very quickly, I do realize that the increase is very modest and very small. And that's why, and I'll make the motion to keep it, and it was a little more symbolic, to be honest, just to hold the line for one time. I'm in the insurance business, and I just got renewals for August, and I got a list of people that have renewed. It happened to be my Blue Cross renewal list. And I've got some that have Blue Cross Dental, and I got 3 of them that it's exactly the same. And my assistant's gonna make those 3 calls, and she gets to tell them it's not going up 1 penny, it's gonna be exactly the same for another year. Those are such fun calls to make, and it's so good, and it just seems like in this time, we rarely get those things. So when I see those in my business, in the insurance world in particular, that's almost a special moment, you know. But when I call my Medicare people this last year, the increases were $1 or 2 or 3, and, you know, on a $180, $90, $200, so very modest, like you guys shot. And that's still an okay phone call to make, but I gotta admit, it was a little fun to do the ones that it didn't go up. And I'm looking at the kids, and again, I'd like to see the differential increase just slightly more between in-district and out-of-district, just because of the burden that our in-district taxpayers are bearing. So I just want to keep that thought up there for us, too, as we go forward.
Each year, we'll chip away at it.
Well, yeah, because there is a little bit of I don't know if I want to call it an oversized burden, but there's an additional burden on the Kootenai County folks, you know, and if you have students at the school, so.
Yeah, Rick, go ahead.
Chris, remind me the percentage increase for the out-of-district tuition increased?
It's a 5% increase.
So again, you're seeing there's that differential there. Do you want to go beyond 5%? Again, for the impact that it has on enrollment?
That's why I want to see
Still
that
a pretty big
gradually.
increase, that 5%.
Yeah, I just want to see that that gradually, and we can work on that every year. So, let me make my motion, I'm sorry. I digressed for a moment, but I also want to, I now lost the verbiage here, I want to get it right. Sorry. I make a motion that we accept the budget as presented, except for the deletion of the salary market analysis survey and the projected $27,500 that would have been allocated towards that.
All right, I'll second that motion for discussion. Trustees, any discussion overall on the budget? Fortunately, we've had some great one-on-one time with our administration on this budget. Each trustee has spent quite a bit of time.
Christy, do you have any input from Ken, by the way? Sorry, I don't mean to
Yes,
interrupt you.
he had no questions about the budget.
Okay, sorry, I just want to make sure.
Yeah. And so we feel very comfortable with it. Before we pass this motion, I would just like to once again commend President McLennan and the administrative team, and really the entire campus who got involved with this budget. Just to listen to the meetings that he's gone to with the constituent groups and make sure that you understand the budget proposal and how the college is going to operate in the coming year, that's a really important thing. It's important to get all the feedback from everyone. So good job on that, and I like how you're doing the budget, and we're very fortunate this year that we're in fairly good shape. So with that, I would call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passed. Congratulations on the budget.
Thank you, Board. You got off easy.
All right. right, that takes us
That's
to new business, tab
worth a
3,
beer.
our first
You have
reading
to
of the Board of
present.
Trustees meeting schedule, 2018-2019. Dr. McLennan.
This is
Toad's
in
gotta
accordance
show
with Idaho Code Section 67-2340 through 67-2345. The Board of Trustees is required to adopt an annual meeting schedule for its regular meetings. You have attached, after painstaking, careful, diligent work by Shannon to check all of our potential conflicts in the upcoming year, knowing for sure that there will probably be one that crops up at some point. This is our best estimate of proposal for a Board of Trustees meeting schedule for the
Right.
fiscal 19
Madam
year.
Chair?
Thank you. Trustee Banducci.
Based on our brief conversation earlier, I noticed that we had made an adjustment for October. May I suggest that we can revisit that if we so desire, because I don't believe any of us are going to the annual conference. So if it's more convenient for us, we can keep it at what would be our normal date.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, we'll revisit that. I'm
Yeah,
not
just a
sure.
thought, you know, we can confirm with Ken, but
Yeah.
I think of the four of us, we're all aware of, none of us are going that I know of.
Okay. Dr. McLennan might be going.
Yeah, that's why I say I don't know what the
Well,
status.
there's that, but I thought, Shannon, didn't one of the trustees indicate that they were going to the conference?
Well, normally the,
Okay.
Brad's
I
our,
had brought it up, but no commitment yet.
yeah,
Okay.
he's our liaison.
Yeah, I would suggest leaving that as a placeholder, just in
Yeah.
case we...
No, yeah, I wasn't looking to change it now, I was just saying we may, and that may be a better date anyway, for whatever reason. It's just, it's Halloween, so.
Right, and you have candy to go get. Okay.
Actually, I have two grandchildren. I do go trick-or-treating with my grandchildren. It's
Sure.
great fun.
All right, we'll definitely revisit that. Could I have a motion to approve the trustee meeting schedule?
I'd move to approve.
A motion to have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Let's see, tab
First read.
4, amendment to the approved Head Start grant application. Beth Ann Fuller. Beth Ann, what did we miss?
I know, we didn't miss anything.
No, say it isn't
I
so.
promise. So Chair Wood, trustees, Dr. McLennan, and guests, thank you for allowing me to come forward with this amendment to the North Idaho College Head Start grant application for school year 2018-19. I come before you with great news that our program was not only offered a cost of living adjustment
Yay.
of 2.6%, but we were also offered an increase in our training and technical assistance funds, which we have not had an increase in many years. So on Friday, May 18th, our Head Start Policy Council approved applying the 2.6 or $69,990 toward increased personnel fringe and ongoing increased costs. And they also accepted our amended training and technical assistance plan to be able to incorporate the additional $2,762 that was offered to us. So the Office of Head Start would like us to try to obligate our grant funds and have the grant fully approved by June 1st. So what they did is they returned our grant in an entirety, even though it was already approved, in order for us to apply these increased revenues and not have to write a separate amendment. So that is what they chose to do, is return the grant to us completely so that we could
Okay.
incorporate these funds.
Well, we will bless it again with good news. I'm very pleased to
we're
hear this.
excited.
Well deserved. All right, Board, do we have a motion for a modification to the Head Start continuation grant?
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Well, one of you guys got to do it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Congratulations.
Thank you, Beth Ann.
That takes us to tab 5, approve our property leases for FY19. Chris Martin.
Keep taking care of those kids real well.
Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you for this opportunity to come before you again this evening. Just briefly, this has become a best practice that the board has adopted. Well, we're coming before the board tonight to request authorization of the chair to execute renewals for the leases that the college has at the Bonners Ferry Outreach Center, Silver Valley Outreach Center, River Bend, Treetop Apartments, and then Head Start locations across North Idaho, including Community United Methodist Church, the Julian Boucher Head Start Center, Lakeland Head Start, Sandpoint, as well as Shoshone.
Board, do we have a motion to approve the leases?
So moved.
And do I have a second for discussion?
Second?
All right, discussion on the leases.
Well,
Questions?
if I may make one comment.
Certainly.
I have no reason not to support this, and Chris, I know you do your job, and you know I have a lot of respect for you, and the only thing that's a little disconcerting, makes me just a smidge uneasy, is there's a lot of numbers here, there's a lot of leases, and we will not have looked at any of them, we've not have reviewed any of them. It's the first time we've seen it, is right here, boom, like that, and we just got to kind of take it on faith. Now, I can do that, but I have to tell you, in the bigger picture, as a fiduciary, and, you know, that's my job every day, you know, licensed and such, it's not at my highest comfort level, but I can still support it. But I just want to point that out. Maybe somehow in the future, there's a way that we can have a little more insight prior to walking in, or even just the delivery of our board book, you know, we got it, and I don't know, there's no real documentation or anything with it. And it just, I don't know.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
We're happy to provide the documentation for this. We did provide that last year as part of the consent, and these are not changes to what was provided last year, but we can provide the full leases. These were all included in the budget that was approved, either for the college obligations such as Jacqueline for graphic design or the outreach centers, but the Head Start leases are all included in their budget as well. And so we're happy to provide that detail.
And again, it may not be necessary, I'm just sharing a feeling with you, and I'm a guy, and I just claim to have a feeling, I did. So.
Madam Chair, if I may, we do sit down with the board chair as these are reviewed and answer any questions and go through those. So there is that level of review, but also happy to provide whatever the board would like as documentation.
What I would suggest, Chris, is I would not really like you to send out all these legal leases to the whole board. But I think that anytime we can come to your office and review them if we feel like it. Dr. McLennan?
Well, I would also offer that for individual board members who want to see more detail on these documents, much of this we have ready at the time we're doing our one-on-one budget conferences, so we can certainly, make that information. And these are all continuing leases, and we would really want to maybe draw out more attention to a new lease and maybe more information about the purpose of that new lease.
And that's a good point. I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
If I may. And even maybe just the pointing out of that these are continuations, that there's nothing new, that little higher comfort factor, just that thank you.
Okay. We had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Chris, and I guess you're going to stay up there, and you're going to talk with us about the information item, the draft facilities master plan.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I really appreciate again this opportunity just to share this information item with you. This is part of an ongoing conversation, and if I can just highlight, this has been a great year to be at NIC. And I'm so proud to be part of this community and this college, but this year especially, the way the college has gathered around the Cultivate work and really step back, I think, and that's hard to do when you're sometimes in the weeds day to day, but as an institution, step back and say, who are we? Are we relevant? Are we who we want to be? And then at this age of the institution, to also be asking ourselves, what do we want to be when we grow up? And to continue asking that question, I think, as an institution that was founded in 1933, has been a valuable experience. And this is one part of that work tonight, looking at how our facilities support the overall work of the college, where we're trying to go strategically. And so, if I may, I'd just like to share a couple principles and talk about some of the highlight of the project. And again, this is a discussion. I think Dr. McLennan opened that up very well in his remarks, that this is a discussion that's ongoing, and we definitely want to engage with you and get your feedback as we together really work on the future for the college.
Okay, so you are planning a board workshop so we can get in the weeds. So tonight, you're just going to give us kind of the highlights, correct?
If that's the will of the board.
Yes.
So the development of the master plan has really been based on this Cultivate NIC work that has really been going on for 18 months at this point. And those of you who were at Convocation this year, it was a pretty exciting event to have everyone in the college engage and really think about what they see as the future of NIC. I will tell you that having the chance to go back through all of those notes from that day, I believe it was like August the 15th this year, that has really been fundamental to the work that you're seeing here and the wide participation of the college. This definitely builds upon the SWOT that you've heard about, the SWOT work, and then multiple campus conversations that the Facility Master Planning Group has had through surveys or engagements with different divisions across campus. I would tell you that this is a supporting role document. We had the opportunity to come before you first, but we're in the background. Sarah asked me to describe the Facility Master Plan today, and I said, we're the crouton on the salad. We're not the main dish, we're just part of it. And I think that's really important for us to keep in mind, that this really does play a supporting role to the academic master plan, ensuring that we're supporting the real work of the college, teaching and learning, and that we're in alignment with our strategic plan. We talked about this briefly at the last board workshop around planning, but I think it's worth mentioning the principles that the facility master plan is really developed around. And this has come through the work of the committee. And as a group sitting down the end of the fall semester and really working around these principles, I was really excited to see how these bubbled up from the group. But a big key part of this is highlighting the heritage, the history, and the natural setting of our campus. We all realize how blessed we are to have this spot, not only in North Idaho, but this spot in the world is a pretty unique place for a comprehensive community college, and really honoring that heritage, our history, as well as just the natural beauty of sitting on the shores of Lake Coeur d'Alene. Knowing that, developing open spaces that can be used throughout campus for student gatherings, for community use, and for learning. Our campus, I would say, because there are people from my team here, I'll be absolutely honest. The level of community use on our campus is amazing, and it provides headaches at times, but what a valuable treasure to have a campus that's used so broadly and in every way supports learning. And so making sure that we have spaces that foster that and continue that tradition is really key. And then you've heard a lot about this conversation about how do we create a connected campus with the mill site and the higher education corridor. And as the campus moves, how do we bring it together into one higher education campus that's pedestrian friendly? Caleb never misses a chance when he's at this podium to talk about parking. And I really appreciate that he continues to make that a topic of conversation because it's so important to our students. But that came through the conversation with the facility planning committee to say, if we're going to have parking on the perimeter, then we have to make sure that pedestrians can access the services on campus in a safe, effective, and I would say within a 5-minute walk. Caleb and I might arm wrestle on that. Recognizing the role of security and how that has changed in how we do facility planning. We've been blessed with a robust security team that has gone, I would say, above and beyond in every way to look at security beyond what we would normally think of. And we're not talking about cameras, we're now talking about how do we place bollards that are attractive, but that would keep vehicles from engaging with our pedestrian traffic or events that we have on campus, and really being mindful and thoughtful about how we manage traffic flow on this campus in light of the fact that we have so many community groups and such high public usage of this space. Avoiding future complexities by being thoughtful about planning building locations. John Mueller has been very gracious in engaging with us, and if he has one mantra, it's that we need to plan today to avoid those complexities. And the committee has worked with John, and I think heard that loud and clear, that let's be thoughtful about what the future looks like and make those decisions now. We are blessed with some incredible fiber optics on this campus, and we learn every day that that loop is so important, and where it's placed is very important because we don't want to go in and remove those or have to move those. So being diligent and thoughtful about that, Ken has conversations with me about this every day. So being thoughtful about that now and making that a principle, and then looking at our long-term growth and needs analysis. We just talked about a budget where we are seeing some declines in our on-campus enrollment. And there's a lot of effort in that budget to make sure that doesn't continue. And I have to say the future for NIC, I think, is bright. And we need to be planning ahead now for how we accommodate the future growth of our region and make sure that we are able to expand to the needs as they change. And then another conversation I'm sure the board is familiar with is working to continue land acquisition and making sure that we're thinking about the whole space, specifically at this campus, as well as in Rathdrum, as things change around those campuses, that we're being mindful of what's happening around us and really thinking beyond the next 10 years when it comes to land acquisition, but the 25 and 50 year. There was a lot of conversation about maintaining the corridor from the river to the lake. The Student Rec Center team did such a fantastic job ensuring that there was viewpoints and that where that building was placed allowed this really amazing walk, if you will, that opens campus up from the lake all the way to the Spokane River, and being mindful of that and being diligent about not placing buildings where that would interrupt that viewpoint. Looking at long-term parking requirements, what those needs are and what our best options are to meet those needs. And then the team really surprised me on this, and I was really excited to hear this. But there was a huge desire that we maintain and modernize our existing facilities. And we are unique as a community college that we have buildings that were built in 1900 and 1940. And the history that has and the ivy-covered walls is pretty unique at a community college. And there's a real desire that we work to maintain those resources and keep them as part of that campus environment. And then again, I think probably goes without saying, establishing both short-term and long-term priorities.
Chairwoman Wood. Chris, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
On that last slide, when you are thinking about the North Campus, and then you mentioned the mill site, are you talking about the property that the city has recently purchased that was the old Atlas mill site out on Saltese?
No, sir. I'm speaking of the mill site that we now affectionately call the Higher Education Corridor or Higher Education Campus.
Okay,
where the
thank you.
nice facility building is being developed.
Okay.
From parking lot A all the way down.
Okay, because, and maybe you'll get to it, so, because that makes me wonder, and obviously this is going to be a evolving master plan, because the city has invited us to participate in that. I know Chairwoman Wood is engaged in some conversations on that with the mayor and others. And then, of course, we've got the land here next to Northwest Boulevard that we're going to be working with them, acquiring. Quite sure how that still looks exactly, I guess.
Not quite ours, but
Yeah,
it's close as it's going to get.
Sort of. So I didn't know if those are already incorporated, or as this evolves, then those will come in as appropriate.
This is an evolving conversation, and that's, I think, the very purpose of getting in the weeds with the board to make sure that we're aligned with the will of the board. This does not address the Atlas Mill site.
Okay.
Right, we couldn't possibly right now, but.
No, that's okay.
but
I'm
future
thinking,
planning, Yeah,
you know, a couple other things that are out there, but not as far as it may seem.
yeah. Certainly.
So I'll just also add that from a process perspective, we're doing a pretty heavy lift now on the facility planning side to kind of get things set. But then we will, at least on a biannual, on a every other year basis, be, and along with the ongoing work of institutional planning and the cycle of planning, these aren't going to be episodic events. They're going to be ongoing and continuing events and evolving events. So any other future consideration about other properties, you know, the outreach centers aren't fully, this is primarily addressing the Coeur d'Alene campus in large, not the Rathdrum Prairie, largely because it's a brand-new facility and there are things that we need to do. But anyway, so this is an evolving discussion. Even if you were to approve a plan going forward this year that did not include Atlas site engagement, that doesn't preclude Atlas site engagement from happening down the road.
Good.
Is the workforce training, Mr. President, is the workforce training center a part of this analysis also, or do we kind of look at that as a standalone?
Chairman Wood, Trustee Banducci, the Workforce Training Center and Rathdrum were addressed as there needs to be long-term development plans around that, and they were included from a deferred maintenance perspective. But we did not do land development around workforce training or the Rathdrum campus.
Okay.
That's a suggestion in the plan that we work towards those.
Because of course, when I think of the Post Falls facility, and then of course, we had the proposed land sale there that obviously did not close, and so we still have some assets out there, facility land, and as we're thinking about our master plan for facilities, to me, that would also include land, and as you indicate, we have a substantial amount of land surrounding our facility adjacent to K-Tech, and whether we will develop that out, or whether industry will come in around us, or what happens, as the development is going on out there. Of course, across the street to the north, the residential development is pretty well filled that in, with Tony Benway and the folks that are building out there. So,
In our workshop, we could probably delve into that a little more, and the
and that
other
might be
piece-
more appropriate.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, again, I'm kind of thinking out loud right now. This is not a critique or criticism or anything. I'm just,
Okay.
big picture,
Continue.
10,000 foot.
Kind of to that point of the big picture, the deferred maintenance portion of our campus, because we are a campus that has buildings that are, at this point, over 100 years old. Looking at that and knowing how we manage that in the future, great news. Part of this process included a deep dive into all systems on this campus and using industry best practice to give every facility on this campus a facility condition index score that helps us know where we are in the life cycle of each facility, and the level of investment that's going to be needed to maintain that. And so the average age of buildings on our campus is 39 years old. And with that, today, right now, our deferred maintenance backlog is $12.4 million. And while that is a large number, it actually, for the size of the asset footprint we have, speaks to the good stewardship of the college over time, maintaining these assets. From a facility condition index analysis, our goal is to maintain that score at 10 or below as a campus. We're at 8 today. And so as we continue to walk through the timing, a long-term strategy will be to increase our funding for deferred maintenance so that we can maintain those facilities at a good range.
Now, we had talked about that, whether it be to put a new roof on or whatever, typical life cycle analysis, and then how we would have that as a commercial enterprise would do, same idea.
Absolutely. And the college today, with DPW support, puts in over $600,000 a year in deferred maintenance. It's a really healthy number based on our budget. But as our physical plant continues to age, we'll need to think about how we increase those supports for those assets. So the short-term and long-term development piece, trying to pull us back to that 30,000-foot view, we've had some conversations about this, but the big things you'll see in this analysis from a needs perspective is an expansion to the Meyer Health and Sciences facility. Lab spaces is really the key issue at this point, as well as learning spaces and offices. And we can get into more weeds about this, but briefly, the growth of the health professions programs has really helped the subscription rates of our natural sciences. And it's those science labs that are all prerequisites for many of our health and nursing programs. This speaks to the success of health professions and nursing as a whole, as really that being a sweet spot for North Idaho College, but it has put massive strain on our labs. And so kudos to the Meyer Health and Sciences team, the faculty and division chairs there. Those labs are used at a max rate. And so that's really what this speaks to. The next piece is the athletic facility. You were all at graduation, and that is, to Dr. McLennan's point, probably the best day on our campus. But you couldn't squeeze another person in there if we had to. We've had basketball games recently where that same thing could be true. It's a wonderful facility. It's a historic facility. It is not regulation and not up to par for intercollegiate athletics. And so as we want to support the programs that we're invested in, the athletic facilities are part of that equation. So the gym is a key part of that. Practice and training facilities, an upgraded wrestling center, and then looking at our outdoor facilities as well as part of this conversation. And so this is a conversation that we want to have with the board to say, this is a need. Christensen is amazing, and Al asks me probably every week what we can do to blow that back wall out. And the truth is, we don't want to blow the back wall out of a 1940s building. We've done what we can do to Christensen. The next piece that you'll see is a gathering center for our community that speaks to our commitments to the 9-point agreement, creating space on our campus where the community can gather, where the campus can gather, where we can engage in conversation and learning, but that also pays heritage to the Coeur d'Alene tribe. and really honors that agreement to honor the fact that this was the ancestral gathering ground of the tribe. Another long-term initiative that you'll see is a student service and learning building that co-locates all enrollment and learner services. This is in alignment with what we talked about as creating a pedestrian-friendly campus and limiting vehicular traffic. As we move parking to the perimeter of the campus, we want to be mindful of having those entering services, those high-need services that students use, easily accessible for busy people who may not always be the most patient, and moving those to a really convenient location, as well as some of our services such as ABE, GED, and highlighting those and putting them front and center with the other enrollment services so that we make completion and retention really a priority, not only in what we do programmatically, but what we do with facilities. And then lastly, Caleb, this is for you. Parking garage development plans. And this will also be key in the discussion of a gymnasium, and depending on the size of that gymnasium, creating proximate parking and the addition of parking structures will be part of that conversation.
And it'll block the wind from the sewage treatment plant on occasion.
Absolutely. Pedestrian connections, you've heard about that, the spatial safety of buildings and pathways, and then the development of campus plans for the Rathdrum Prairie campus. There's 40 acres there that we want to be thoughtful about. We don't think this is something that has to be done today, but in the long term to really be thoughtful about how we develop that campus using the same principles that we talked about for the main campus. It's important that we lay that out now to avoid future complexities and maximize the potential of that space. And finally, the deferred maintenance piece. Thank you.
It's a lot to think about.
May I ask a question?
Yes, certainly. Trustee Banducci.
Do you have one first? Go ahead. I didn't want to
No,
interrupt you.
no, no. I'm just.
Chris,
thinking.
aerospace is something, and I know Cassie's talked about that, and it looks like she had to leave. Do we have a thought on, do we have the capability currently to move aerospace, or are we going to have to increase the size of our facility to get aerospace over there? And if you don't have an answer, that's okay too. I didn't know where that discussion has been.
Chair Wood, Trustee Banducci, it cannot fit right now in the current footprint of the Parker Center. This was thinking about the expansion plan for the Parker Center or where that might fit on the 40 acres, but it would not fit at this time within the existing footprint.
Okay.
Dr. McLennan.
Chris, do you want to just spend a few minutes on explaining the document that they have? Absolutely. What it is and what it isn't, and where it will go next?
Absolutely. Chair Wood, if I may.
One thing I wanted to mention, and you've talked about this, and for those that don't know it, we are building some storage facilities out at the Parker Technical Education Center. So we are adding to the footprint for external storage.
With the approval of this budget,
Yes,
absolutely.
that's what I mean.
We will work towards that for exterior storage, keeping in mind not impacting the expansion plans for that facility. So Chair Wood, if I can respond, I appreciate the prompt there. Dr. McLennan, what it isn't is fully baked. That's what it's not. I would tell you what it is a work in progress, and it's a place for us to have a discussion and to really engage with you and continue engagement across campus. As I spoke to earlier, this really is an integral part of supporting the work of the academic master plan and the strategic plan of the college as a whole, which we keep kind of teasing you with that. That's really great stuff. And I think this conversation will be more complete having this as part of how this fits with the academic master plan and the strategic plan of the college. What you have before you is a draft that lays out kind of the big blocks, where we're at, some of the costing around these things, and a timeline for how we might approach this. Again, it's meant to be a discussion until the board adopts it, and is absolutely not fully baked at all, but is in process.
Great. Well, Chris, I'll tell you, we've had a facilities master plan presented to us before. It's been quite some time, and the board just really honestly just kept choosing not to adopt it because we just didn't have a clear vision or a cohesive board at the time. So I do appreciate all the work that's gone into this. I know that this is a lot of reading we need to do. All of us need to review it. On this, Chris, are these, like I see a building, the Industrial Arts Building. I thought that was something down the road that wasn't a feasible building to keep. Is that some of that in here of recommendations for what happens to buildings that are no longer modern enough and can't be renovated?
Chair Wood, I think that's a very delicate conversation. I think you handled that very well.
Okay.
What you will see is in the long-term space development plan, where we talk about creating a viewpoint from the lake to the river, you'll see some buildings are not on the plan.
I see.
And at some point, it is not worth maintaining some of these buildings just because of the sheer cost. We would be better served to reallocate those resources in that space to other things. And this plan politely steps around that and creates a path forward for the board without necessarily putting a date on when someone's office may be coming offline.
Okay. We don't want to upset anybody. We'll get them a new office. Well, this is a lot to look to. Did you have any other comments or questions? Yeah.
First of all, I'd like to thank Dr. McLennan, the President, Cabinet, Chris, Sarah, everybody. We finally have a document that helps us, guides us in terms of our decision-making that isn't just based on thin air and speculation. It's the Cultivate project that leads to a lot of these discussions, and it's often talked about. Typically, it's not in paper. It's always, well, we have this plan, but nobody knows what the plan is. So I think this is a great document as a first step and follow up to the Cultivate. I think another step that might be wise would be that, and we talked a little bit about this, having electronic documents for the meetings.
Yes.
So this comes here, so somebody didn't have to collate all of this and provide to us, and I just think there's more efficient ways to do that. So just a thought.
I love that suggestion.
Yeah, that is discussion that we've had in the past, and I would just like to ask President McLennan to pursue that for the board. Find out if there's a way to provide us with electronic means at board meetings. A lot of boards are doing that now.
We can do that.
And we will save some trees, and Shannon can go home at night instead of doing this. Any other questions over here?
No, thank you, though.
I had a quick question. Well, I assume at our workshop that you will provide the reasoning, the strong statistics, and everything in this packet, on why you've chosen Meyer Health Science and then a gymnasium to be at the top of the list, priority-wise. We have talked about other things that maybe we could do, and this is kind of what Todd alluded to, down the road, if we could look for a partnership with the city on a little tiny piece of ground at Atlas for baseball. And I doubt that that's in here, but it might be in some sort of plan that Al has looked at. So if there's anything like that out there, if you could bring that to the workshop so we could see it all at the same time. If it's not out there, you don't need to create it. But for years, we've talked about what's the possibility of bringing back baseball. So it's not really a facility as far as a building, but we'd certainly need to plan for it if we were ever going to do something like that. And with that, the price tag, so the trustees could understand it, if it is something that we could possibly do.
We'll call the press box a building.
The press box building, yeah.
Greatest.
And those are conversations that the president's sort of kind of having, and I don't want to step on his toes and get way ahead of our headlights. If there's any information, bring it. If not, don't worry about it. Did you have another question, Trustee Banducci? Thought I heard
No,
you
ma'am,
down
you
there.
articulated that well. Just
Okay.
The baseball's the greatest sport, so.
Okay, so we will take this, we will read it, and Shannon, if you would get a copy to Trustee Howard, I know he'd be very interested in this, then when will we reconvene? End of June?
So we're still working on a date. And then the other thing that I would offer, that we will have the next iteration of this document to you prior to the workshop, so that you will have an opportunity to go through it in detail prior to getting together to have a conversation about it. But this will give you a good starting point.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you for this.
Chair Wood, if I may,
Caleb,
I have one
yes.
quick comment. Chris, thank you for the work that you did on this. I know it took quite a while for the committee to come together. I also appreciated when part of the committee came into ASNIC to get student input on how the buildings could function better for student use and everyday use in general. One question that we had of concern was the elevators in Lee Kildow and Headland. I noticed that on on the Lee Kildow, it is marked that an elevator needs an upgrade, which is great. On Headland, it is not marked, however, and that was one of the elevators that also had trouble functioning, especially for students who need to utilize those elevators to attend their classes. So just a heads up on that is also a point of concern that students came to us about that sometimes would not work properly.
And Lee Kildow is on the list for this fiscal year, so we will make a note of Headland. Thank you.
Great, happening faster than you thought. I guess I had one more question. Maybe this is for you and Sarah. In this, after I read it, I might have the answer, but you'll have it now. Continuity and design, is that incorporated into this? I know you worked very closely with Trustee Meyer and Asnick on the Student Rec Center to make sure that we kept the similar design of the campus. So has that been addressed in here?
Not specifically. That speaks to some of the principles about the natural setting and the continuity of campus. But we have worked really hard over the last 3 projects to develop standards. What hasn't been ironed out is the exterior standard. Interior standards we're really good at. We're still working towards those exterior standards. But part of that includes, in every project, review by the tribe and bringing those pieces in to make sure that we have the tribal heritage respected and integrated. So we will work towards finalizing the exterior standards.
Okay, that would be very interesting. I don't think we're too far off at the moment on how the college looks overall, but we would want to address that.
Absolutely.
And I would tell you a really good resource, I'm sure you've maybe even heard from him, Steve Meyer. He did a lot of work for us.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
That takes us to the board chair report, and mine is very short and brief. Graduation was wonderful. It was, it is the greatest time of year to see everybody so excited about getting their certificates, degrees, whatever they're doing there. They've all worked so hard for it, and I remember as a student how great it felt to mark across the stage. So great that we could all take part of that wonderful celebration. And the Bon Appetit was a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying the time I get to spend with the foundation board. They work so hard for us. They work so hard for students. The amount of money that they bring in for students that are, that need the extra assistance is just amazing. And so anytime we get an opportunity to thank the foundation, either individually as a board, and I know President McLennan always does, we just need to do that for all their hard work and everything they do for our students. I don't think I really had any more than that. So I will open it up to remarks for the good of the order.
Just to piggyback or dovetail on what you said, there were a lot of wonderful events over about a 2-week period, and a number of the different graduations and celebrations and times of acknowledgement. And it really was a time of great joy and a blessing for all of us to be involved and participate in all that.
Mm-hmm. Best time of the year, for sure. All right. With nothing else, we are adjourned.